righty. Well, thanks for coming, everyone. We have a few people online. We wanted to start off today. So I guess first of all, I should explain the context of. Let me stand over here. Yeah, I should explain the context of this. This is our fall forum. We have 2 of these a year. Essentially, this is residents' opportunity to voice their concerns directly with administration and hopefully get answers to those and hopefully come up with solutions to problems that administration might not even know exist. So we'll start with some introductions of our resident council. We're gonna have you guys come up here and I guess line up or whatever and just say hi to the camera. So I'm Garrett, the mayor, and then
I'm Willa, campus liaison.
I'm Sherelle Vidia, community liaison.
I don't know if I'm in the camera. Hi, I'm Jenna, the communications liaison.
Hi, I'm Skylar. I'm the Cottonwood liaison.
And we do have a liaison for Spruce. She got stuck in a class tonight, so she'll be here a little later. Her name is Juwan. So, but with that, I think we can just go ahead and get started. Valerie's gonna take us through. They've prepared a short little presentation, and then they'll answer some questions. So, Valerie, take it away.
Cool. Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming tonight, all of you out there in the big audience as well as online. So glad to have you here. I am here representing Wendy, who is our new director. She unfortunately got taken very ill today and is not here, so you're stuck with me for the night. But she passed on all of her notes and the perspectives that she hopes that we can bring to this. If there are things I can't answer, we can send her an email and get those from her. Or maybe neither of us have the answer. That's always possible too. But anyway, thanks to Resident Council for hosting this, for putting this together. And thanks to all of you who are joining us as residents from the Sunnyside Apartments. So a couple of things that I just want to do initially, and then we can turn off the feed or turn off the PowerPoint. I'm going to give you a brief construction update and kind of what to expect in the next few weeks. And then we're going to talk about some of our new social media stuff that we've got going on, trying to get people signed up for that. We're also going to talk about some of the things that we've been working on with the council this fall, some things that they brought to our attention that we were able to address, I think, successfully. So we want to make sure we celebrate the collaboration that we have with your elected leadership as well. And then I think the other thing we want to do is look at what does phase 2 look like. So right now, for those of you who have lived here for a while, the 100, 200, and 700 courts are gone. And all that's left is the West Community Center, right? And that will be the last part of the phase 1 or the phase 2 demolition that will go down. So let's see. Oh, I gotta move this slide too. All right, so first we'll do a construction update. This is kind of a rendering. There's a better one later. But this is a rendering of phase 2. So there is the Spruce. That's going to be over by the main office, kind of towards the western side. This will be single graduate housing. And then the other one that's in a shape like the Cottonwood ones now will be family housing. And then in the center of that, instead of attached to the building, and there is a better rendering coming, but instead of that attached to the building, freestanding will have a community center similar to this. The one that has the red playground structures, that's going to be a new childcare, and that'll be a freestanding childcare that will be shared. We'll talk about it more later, but it will be shared by Head Start and by the Parent Student Support Center on campus. So, and we'll talk more about that as we answer questions. In the next few weeks, a couple of things that you can expect. Right now, we don't have any power outages planned. Yay us. We never know when that might happen, but I think the big ones that we needed to do to get power to the main office and to maintenance so that we could continue using those buildings and to get the infrastructure to phase 2, I believe are complete. So hopefully we're done with power outages for a while. In the next few weeks, the abatement and the demolition is on schedule. They're actually ahead of schedule on the 1, 2, and 700 courts. And should be completed with that, including the West Community Center by the 2nd week of December. And so the West Community Center will be the last one to go down. For me, I've been here 20 years and I have set up those tables and chairs a lot of times. I'm gonna cry and grab myself a brick when they take that one down. So There's a road closure going on this week that's probably impacting everyone and frustrating you a bit. So right now they're adding the utility line on the western side of the West Village. And in order to do that, there's going to be times when they actually have to close off the perimeter road on the western side of the property in order to get the infrastructure. It may intermittently be closed again, but for this week, it's closed for most of the week. So anybody get stopped by that trying to go in that driveway? Yeah, I did too. All right, this is like some of what we want to celebrate. As administration, we love working with student representatives because a lot of times you guys as residents see things differently than we do. You have perspectives that we don't have. So we depend on you to help inform what we need to do. And the student leaders this year have done a great job of that. A couple of things that we have worked with them on. Some of you who have EV cars probably noticed there was nowhere to charge them for some time. The EV charging stations did finally get installed out in the parking lots out here. We also took an EV charging station that was tied to a handicap stall, and we made it just a regular EV charging one on this side of building 797. We got the new parking lights finally installed and functioning instead of the bright lights that were shining, the temporary lights that were shining in some people's windows. When we suddenly took out garbage bins, that happened to come somewhat unexpectedly. We were able to, within a week, get additional garbage bins and recycle bins to the 8, 9, and 1,000 ports. And then one of the things, some of you are new to Sunnyside Apartments, but for those of you who have been here for a year or two, last year at this time was when we released the new rates for the new buildings. And as a result of that, there was kind of an upheaval at the university. The graduate students, especially, and a lot of the faculty members said, hey, you know, how are students going to live at these prices? And as a result of that, one of the things that we committed to, not we being Sunnyside Apartments, but the university, is that we committed to sharing a timeline of the building closures with Cedar residents. Last year, when we shared the closures, people were given only 10 months notice. And the students said, you know, we need more notice than that. So just last week, those of you who live in the 8, 9, and 1,000 courts probably got the notice that your court will be closing in May, on May 31. So you can stay to the bitter end if you want, or if you want to transfer prior to that time, you are allowed to transfer. And there are some questions coming up that we'll address about that process. And then another concern that council brought to us that our maintenance director was working on with the general contractor is the bad lighting on the western perimeter road. It was really dark out there. And so we pressed the Jacobson, who's the general contractor, to get those lights. So thanks to resident council for helping us to push that through because we were talking with them about it, but they weren't moving very fast. And then once we said that students were talking about safety concerns, we were able to get those lights installed a lot more quickly. It makes the rest of the place look really dark now, don't you think? Yeah, that's so weird. The contrast is pretty great. So any questions on those? I'll just stop there for a minute because we have a small group and it looks like we have a few people online, but any questions about any of those? All right, so here's the phases. Let me see if I can get my bearings here. All right, so we are, oh, sorry, for those of you online, I'm sorry. We are right here. Oh, sorry, here in building 797 Cottonwood. This is what used to be our great sledding hill and party place called the Grassy Bowl. It's coming back by next year, hopefully. These are the parking lots that were added where the 300 and 600 courts used to be. And then this is what here's where the new phase is. So we've got the single graduate housing, which I believe is slated to open in fall 2025, and then the family housing, which is slated to open in January of 2026. There is surface parking there. I think one of the concerns that somebody was asking, like, what are we doing to preserve green space? Everything we can. The reality is we're never going to have the kind of green space we used to have with higher density living. But this entire place area here, which used to be the Grassy Bowl, is going to be restored. I think by next summer, I'm not exactly sure. And then this will be the new childcare. There's also green space around there. And then there's green space within the center of the port structure of the buildings as well. So this project was what was called the design build project. And what that means is once we sign the contract, we can't make a lot of changes to it. And the reason we were able to expedite the second phase of this construction is that we're doing a flip version of what's here. So we didn't have to go back to bid and go through all of those processes again because we had an existing plan in place. So that's what phase 2 is going to look like. I think there's a question somewhere. I'm kind of barreling through some of your questions as I go, but the main office will be located in the new family housing in 2026. So right now we're a little island of construction everywhere around us. So, all right, any questions about what phase 2 might look like?
What's that little building to the left of the new family?
This one?
Yeah.
I'm guessing that's probably a chiller plant or something because like here we have this, that's where all the
So that's
infrastructure.
not office.
No, the office will be within the family housing. Yeah, and maintenance, I honestly have not heard yet where they're going. So maybe they'll be in the last phase or if there is another phase, so. Yeah, so that's infrastructure, I'm pretty sure, because it looks similar to that one, so. All right, any other questions on that?
So you said that the big garage here is gonna be done by hopefully this next year.
I think so. I hope so.
Along with like the.
The single grad is 2026. Yeah. 2025. Wait, what year is it?
2025.
Yeah, 2025, sorry. It's 2023 right now. So yeah, I think the bowl, I mean, if you look at it, they're working on it pretty hard. So I think that restoration, hopefully we'll be able to use that for some programming stuff next summer. So yeah, and for sledding. We lost the best sledding hill ever, right? All right, any questions on that? All right, we are a little late to the game, but we are stepping up our social media game. One of the things about student apartments is that for the past 60 years, we haven't had a lot of change. And right now we're going through a lot of change. Together, what did it just say to me? It's talking to me. It's talking to me. I don't know what it said. And is everybody have that? And then I'll go ahead and, okay, I'm going to move on to the next slide and then we can take. This is just one thing that I wanted to show you. Some of the it doesn't look really unique. And so these all of it's going to have Utah places as the artwork in both the cottonwood and the spruce. As far as Keurig machines right now, that is not in our plans to add a Keurig machine. We do have quite a few study rooms, so I'm not sure what that would look like, but that wasn't something that was in our plans, but that was a request from somebody. Well, hello. I got a cute baby out here who's ever online. All right, so let me go ahead. I'm just going to go through some of the questions that people have submitted. So the first question is there a way we could temporarily offer bedding for people who move in from out of the country or out of state? Lots of times, especially international students, I think, arrive here with nothing and end up sleeping on the floor. We have not done that in the past. Part of it is due to some health and safety concerns about, laundering the sheets and things like that. But we are going to look at possibilities of maybe offering some air mattresses that people could check out for some days that could be sterilized and clean. If we do, it'd be something we'd start in the fall of 2024. So. The weather's cold. So this question, can the apartment raise the temperature limit of our thermostat? I know this has been in the new buildings has been a concern for a lot of people. We think that 74 is too cold. I heard that the temperature limit of spruce is 78 or 76. Thank you for your consideration. So they have changed. Those of you who live in spruce went through some days without heat and kind of messed up heat and air conditioning and things like that. They have changed it now. This particular person that reached out to us, theirs has been adjusted to 78. If your upper range is not 78 on your thermostat, you can call maintenance to come and address that. So this one comes from someone in the Cedar units. I would like to talk about the lighting situation in the enclosed staircases of the Cedar buildings. I think the lights should be turned on as close to 24/7 as possible due to the fact that it gets exceedingly dark early in the winter, and I've tripped several times on the way to my apartment door. And so Wendy, our director, said that this request has been submitted and the lights will be corrected to come on earlier and stay on later in each of the courts. One of the challenges that I know, just because I've lived here for 20 years and we talk about this, or haven't lived here, I've worked here for 20 years, is that some of those are on sensors and some of them are on timers. So every building is different, and that's why sometimes in the Cedar units, the lights are coming on at different times because some are built into sensors and some are built on timers. So it's probably going to take us some time to do that, but Wendy has committed that she's going to work with maintenance to provide better lighting to make those stairwells safer. Here's one everyone wants to know. Next year, will Spruce residents be able to get a garden plot? Do we know if ongoing construction will allow for garden plots? And will the gardens even be continued after construction is over? The answer is yes. Keeping the gardens is a very high priority for us. Ever since we started construction, our former director, our current director, and I have been like, you cannot take the gardens. There is going to be more competition for the gardens now that we have more people that will be living on the West Village footprint. But when the garden plots open, they're open to all residents from Cottonwood, from Spruce, from Cedar East, from Cedar West. Everybody's eligible to apply for a plot. In those gardens, for those of you who haven't been here, we also have 2 herb gardens that are kind of shared herb gardens. And there's some summer activities and things that we do together in the gardens. That's really nice. So, and those open up in March. Usually we send out things and say it opens at 8 a.m. and you need to be on your computer at 8 a.m. to get your name in if you're a serious gardener. So, all right, any questions about gardens? How do I turn this off? It's out of here. No questions? Okay. All right, will phase 2 include a new daycare? If so, would this daycare be under the same system as the others, operated by UKids or operated independently? Would a new daycare chain charge market value or student value? So we've been working with both Head Start and with the Child Care Center on campus. That's called the Parent Support Center now. They are the ones that run the East Village, the one on Guardsman Way, the Child Care in President's Circle. They will be operating several classrooms, and then there'll be a Head Start classroom. Head Start is generally a federally funded program, and you have to be income eligible in order to access those. The on-campus childcare operations, they are market value, but generally they have a lot of scholarships and a lot of financial aid available to people that want to put their kids, and they prioritize students in the enrollment of people in the childcare. So we don't know exactly what their fee structure is, but the parent support service on campus is very committed to making it as accessible as possible for as many students as possible. So we've already worked with them, picking out the furniture, picking out the finishes and everything. And so they are committed. When we open that one, it's possible that the East Village one will close at about the same time. We don't have a timeline on that yet. So let's see. We talked a little bit about green space, but I'll just address this. Will the large space between the current and under construction new buildings only be used for surface parking? I'll go back to that map. Or can we ask for green space? If yes, on the green space, could it be used for animals? So we kind of talked about that, the big West Village Bowl, what was formerly the bowl, and then the green areas there, and then the green areas inside the interior, sort of like we have here in Cottonwood and Spruce, will be retained. As far as animals go, I think there's a question later about that. Animals are welcome to use these areas as long as they're on leash and as long as owners are picking up after them. We don't at this point have any future plan for a designated pet area. We don't have it planned. It's not in the budget. There's a lot of moving parts right now, and it's not inexpensive to add that. So right now, we don't have a current plan for a designated pet area, which I think was a question that comes up later. Here's one for the Cedar folks who are here. Will displaced Cedar residents get priority relocation again into the phase 2 buildings or a discounted rent? Or will relocated Cedar residents be moved into the Cottonwood Spruce buildings preferentially? So the email that went out to the people in the Cedar West Apartments said that if you're an eligible family and you want to keep living here beyond May 2026, you should get on the transfer list now to move to the East Village. In the first, when we took down Medical Plaza, which was for single graduate students, people moving from Medical Plaza had no other place to go. The people who were living in the 100, 200, and 700 courts and the earlier closures, we were able to move them into comparable units. So that's the same thing that's going to happen with 8, 9, and 1,000, is that you are beginning today eligible to get on the transfer list to go to the East Village if you're going to be here past May of 2026. There won't be any priority given. You're given almost 2 years notice. So you've got time to get on the wait list and we could accommodate you. It might mean moving earlier than you had hoped, but we always try to work with people as much as we can with that as well.
Can I also give a little more color to that? I recently moved from a smaller apartment into a bigger apartment, but the timing, like I didn't want to move too early, and so you can get on the wait list early and just set the time that you want to move for later. So if you get on the wait list now and set it for January of 2026. Theoretically, if you were the first one to do that, you'd be at the top of the wait list when January 2026 came around. So if you're like, I want to move, but I don't want to move now because I enjoy where I'm living, but I'm going to end up being here past 2026, you can get on the wait list now to make sure that, and then, yeah, so Valerie just voiced that, but I just wanted to explain, like, I've been through this before and it works. So.
Yeah, no, I'm trying to get myself off the big screen. Woo. I'm gonna go this way, then you can't see me up there as much. All right, does that make sense for those of you in the 8, 9, and 10? There will not be any financial compensation given as far as a lowered rate. When we have closed other courts, generally people are given $100 if they move out and $300 to transfer, just as part of the thing. We have not determined that yet, but I expect it might be a similar thing that we'll offer since we're the ones that are forcing you to transfer in order to have a comparable unit. So let's see. And then also relocated Cedar residents will be moved to their preferred location. So if somebody wants to move to the 1100 court, we'll do our best to get you into that court if you have particular places, if we can, as much as possible. We will not force anybody to move anywhere. People will be given an option. Either you can have this apartment or you can wait for another one. If you wait too long, you may not get one. We had that in the 700 court where some people kept waiting, and then in the end, we were barely able to find them somewhere to go. So, but this, we have almost a 2-year time frame to work with. So I would love to learn more about designated pet relief areas for residents. Pet relief, I can unplug this. I'm just going to unplug it. For those of you online, I have a huge picture of myself behind me. It's making me nuts. So this is a question about the designated pet relief areas. We will consider it. We've been looking at it for years, given the increasing number of emotional support animals and assistance animals that we have here. But at the current time, there's no funding in place or a plan to add that at this time. Are there volunteer opportunities within the community? Resident council?
Yeah.
What are they?
You can always volunteer in health areas. There's plenty of activities that are always going on that you can always volunteer with, and that's basically volunteer in the community itself. Along with that, there's plenty of sites and online things that you can go find and serve around in the community. But yeah, always welcome to volunteers for sure.
That place on campus to volunteer or find volunteer opportunities. It's just an entire organization that's living for the opportunity that they have for all types of situations. Like, as much as they want to use it, they have something.
Yeah, and I don't know if you have to have a student ID to go there, but I think if you are attached to a student ID, if you're the spouse or the dependent of, or the partner, I think you can go in with them as well. So, and that's located in the Union Building. Yeah. All right, so this next one comes from a Cottonwood resident. Because the amount of storage available inside and outside the Cottonwood Apartments, we had to buy wardrobes and dressers. The person goes on to quote some consumer product safety information about attaching furniture to a wall to prevent incidents and injuries. The furniture store we bought some stuff from contacted us by email to make sure that we had attached our recent purchase to the wall as per their guidelines, because of the risk of kids grabbing it and pulling it. Right now, the resident handbook says residents may make up to 6 small nail holes per room. This does not allow attaching furniture to walls. A week ago, the wardrobe fell on my 5-year-old daughter when she opened it. Thankfully, she wasn't hurt. But could you please review the internal regulations and allow the fixing of furniture to the walls? So the answer was, we're working on modifications to the handbook to allow the use of a safety bracket that's been recommended by the furniture manufacturer. So especially with potential of earthquakes, or if you've got heavy stuff and kids that like to climb, I'm not sure if the policy will be able to be applied to the cedar units. I'm not sure exactly, but she said we will send out an email as soon as we have set the policy. And then included in that question, and in another question later, is talking about the limited storage amount in the Cottonwood units, which are the family units here. Those of you in Cedars are like, what? You guys have more, you have more storage than we do, right? But I know there was another question, I can't find it now, but there was another question saying, you know, a lot of us have skis and outdoor equipment and stuff, you know, we need more space. So for those of you in Cottonwood and Spruce, we are just getting ready to launch just because of the chaos of this phased rebuild. We do have storage rooms that will be rentable. There are some rooms that have cages that are like 6 foot by 4 foot, Chris, something like that. Yeah, and those will become available after the first of the year for people to rent for additional storage space. So yeah, for Cottonwood, as far as I know, Paul, do you need a unit? I don't know that we've set a policy on that. I would assume we'd probably start there since because of proximity. So that's a good question. I don't know the answer. That's for you, Wendy, wherever you are. Yes. Yes, additional. Yeah, it would be. I know we were looking at it prior to opening and trying to compare it to square footage, you know, in storage places in the city and stuff. But we did not do that. It kind of got put behind us just because of the chaos of all the things happening with the move, with the phased rebuild. So I think by the first of the year, we're going to be pretty close to launching something, and it won't be above market rate. It'll be at what market rate probably is what we were looking at before. So if it's 6 by 6, how much do they charge in another place? So it'll be similar. For example, I just mean for example. Yeah. Yeah. Chris is actually and AJ are doing the measuring in the next week or so. So. All right, this is one everyone wants to know. Will we have a rent increase this year? Okay, I'm going to read Wendy's answer. There is not a freeze on rates for next year. Rent increases will be determined by administration as part of the fiscal year 2025 budget process, and residents will be notified by April 1, 2024, if there's to be an increase starting July 1st. And that's true for Cedars, Cottonwood, and Spruce. And one of the things just to think about is that Sunnyside Apartments doesn't operate in a vacuum. We're part of the university's system, and some of these decisions aren't just made by Wendy as our director or by a lot of us. There's other things that feed into that as well. So thank you for your patience, and sorry, we don't have an answer yet There is not a rate freeze for sure, that I know of. But we're just starting the budget process now for the 2025. Budget process starts in January. By March, we submit our finals. We can't release the rates until the university has finalized our entire budget, which is usually around April 1 to April 15. So. Can family housing tenants request furnished apartments since some single graduate tenants have opted out of their furniture? So if single graduates have opted out of their furniture, I'm not aware of many cases of that unless they got an accommodation from the Center for Disability and Access. At this time, we are not offering furnished apartments for families. That being said, we have a really good relationship with a company called Court Furniture that does both short-term and long-term rentals. So we do have some referrals that we could send people to if people wanted to prefer to furnish the apartment temporarily with rented furniture. It's about $129 a month to rent like a 1-bedroom at the local market from this company. So we do have several furnished apartments that are used for short-term purposes or for departments that have rentals. But as far as ones that would be made available in the general rental market, we don't intend to furnish more. Can you not hear me? Oh, sorry. Okay, I'll use my playground voice. All right, here's one for you, Garrett. What will resident council look like after the new buildings are finished? Will it revert to traditional positions or keep a family and single graduate student representative? So I'll give a little bit of history and then Garrett can talk about it. When we knew that these buildings were going to open in August, last year's resident council said, you know what, we need representation on our elected leadership from the new buildings. And so usually the election cycle starts in March and resident council members start in June. So there are usually 4 positions. This year in October, once the buildings were full, we chose to have a designated person from Cottonwood and a designated representative from Spruce. But next year, any ideas?
Yeah, no, we're thinking about it. We're thinking about, so I should start off by saying, first of all, the Spruce and Cottonwood, as they are constituted now, those representatives are probably going to go away. And the only reason for that is because, like Valerie said, Spruce and Cottonwood residents were not here to vote for us for the original 4. So we wanted to make sure that they had an opportunity to vote for members of resident council. We are considering, and this is really in super early stages, we haven't really thought it all the way through, but we are considering doing more of a place-based representative. So think, representatives of House in like United States government, like something similar to that. But we haven't decided yet. It's something that we need to talk about more, but it's TBD, and the decision will be made by election time. So we'll see. But I guess the point that I really want to make is that everybody will have a voice. So because that was the reason we brought in Juan and Skylar or had their positions elected, was because we wanted to make sure everyone had a voice. So next year, the reasons for those positions are no longer a thing, I guess is what I'm gonna say. So
Thanks, Garrett. Yeah, and the number of people that are living in Sunnyside Apartments hasn't changed that much. We have net gains and net losses based on the demolitions and the buildings. So right now there's 4 positions: mayor, campus liaison, communications, and community representative. And that structure has worked pretty good. And some of you may or may not know that Resident Council is a sponsored student organization with ASUU, which is the student government that oversees all of campus. Through that, they're able to apply for some of the funding that helps to provide some of the programming we do out here. So that's, if they change all of their structure, we got to change all of the Constitution and all of those structures as well. But yeah, we just started talking about it, huh? Yeah. All right, is it possible to request balconies or air drying laundry locations in the new buildings? For those of you living in Cedar East and West, you have those nice outdoor laundry areas where you can air out your laundry, right? The Sunnyside Apartments, the new apartments were a design build project. And the second phase has no plan for balconies or laundry drying areas at this point. So sorry about that for those of you who like to dry your clothes outside. So. All right, here's a good one that comes up often. I'm deathly allergic to cat and dog dandruff. Is it possible to request an apartment that has never had an animal before? Is it? We know which apartments have had animals in them if they're approved animals, which they're supposed to be. Can we ever guarantee that nobody ever had an animal in an apartment in the cedar units? If there were illegal animals that we didn't catch that were unapproved, we couldn't guarantee that. But if it's a concern, if somebody wants to transfer something, we can go through and at least look if there were approved animals in there. But I'm guessing in the cedar units, I mean, about 10, 12 years ago is when we started getting more and more emotional support animals and assistance animals here. And so we've had a lot of animals living here over that time. So I'm not sure that we could guarantee that to anyone. Interesting story. Recently, I went on a trip with my daughter on fall break and I tried to book a hotel that had a room that they could guarantee an animal had not been in. And hotels also can no longer guarantee that you have a room that's never had an animal in it, at least not the ones I looked at. So, all right, any questions on animals? It's usually a hot topic, not today. Okay, no dog poop near you right now. All right, can we replace the shower head in the apartments? So if you look at your resident handbook, there's a policy called repairs and alterations, which prohibits residents from making any alterations to any of the plumbing or anything else in your apartment. We can review it. We have had people get accommodations for certain reasons. They needed a handheld shower because they had an injury or something. But at this point, we do not plan to change that policy. There's too many plumbers gone wrong and people who may or may not be trained to do that in your apartment. But you can always ask if you have a specific reason for that, and maintenance may be able to work with you. We may, in most cases, if people ask for some sort of accommodation like that, a lot of people ask for bidets and things like that. They have to actually go through an approval process in order to add that plumbing. And the reason being is for the safety of all of the water, because the water, if there's not a proper backflow on the toilet, it could contaminate the water for neighbors as well. You could have E. coli issues. So we're very cautious about that, both in the new apartments as well as in the existing ones. So this is from a Cottonwood person. Can the policy banning bunk beds be revised for the new buildings? Yes, we will revisit it. The reason that bunk beds are not allowed in the cedar units, anybody know? Because there's asbestos that's encapsulated in the ceilings, and the risk of having a kid up there disturbing that over a long period of time. It's an overly cautious approach to it, but that's the reason that we have that there. All right, can I park a trailer in a corner of the parking lot? So if everybody asks this question, there'd be nowhere to park, right? So our answer to that is temporary parking may be available for recreational vehicles or trailers subject to approval. Sometimes we have residents who have campers and they take them out for a weekend and come and park them for a day or two. Generally speaking, trailers will not be approved for long-term parking. But if somebody moves from Idaho and they have their dad's trailer for 3 weeks and they're driving back to Idaho, those are the kind of ones you could come to the office to get approval for. Yeah. Mm-hmm. You can go on as a resident, whoever has the access to commuter services. Are you a student or yeah. So as a student, you could go on, you could get a visitor pass. It's probably cheaper to buy an annual pass for it though. And then you can just remove the car. Depends on how long your car, just remove it after that car's off the premises.
You can also change the license of fine. So you have to get rid of one of them.
Oh, you can? See, thanks. Okay.
I've got to.
So the right answer is, thank you, Garrett, that you can change, if you have an existing permit and that car is going to be gone, you can exchange that for your temporary permit on the car that you have. So I haven't paid to park here for a while, I guess, right? Let's see, here's another parking question, and everybody wants to know this. Will the new buildings and surrounding areas eventually move to normal campus parking with a tiered parking structure, or tiered parking with U and A parking spots, or a special resident parking permit? How much would this cost? The answer is we will not be transitioning parking in the villages to commuter services this fiscal year, next fiscal year. So you got through 2025. At some point, likely it will transition because commuter services oversees our parking lots. It'll become similar to what they have at Housing and Residential Education and what former Medical Plaza residents had. And that is more than $6, but less than an on-campus pass as well, but a special designated housing permit so that people who don't live here can't park here and walk to campus or drive to campus. So, yeah. Yes. You know, that somehow got missed. The question is, there designated motorcycle parking? Yes, there should be. And when we put in some of the visitor parking, we still did not get commuter services to designate what is motorcycle parking. Is there still designated motorcycle in 8, 9, and 10 in your? Yeah. So it's only in the Cottonwood and Spruce. The designated parking for motorcycles is way over by the main office. And that's the only one that's designated so far. So we're still working on that one. So yeah, good, because I know there's a motorcycle that parks on 796 and never moves. Yeah. Yeah, I know. When I was trying to park tonight, I'm like, I bet this motorcycle makes people mad. So yeah, that is still in transition with commuter services. So yeah, good question. Oh, yes. Okay.
And they are building a ramp to the lower parking lot of the building. They're saying a lot of people back to the wagons.
Back behind 796. Going to that parking lot. If it's not there yet, I don't think there's currently a plan for that. I'd be interested to have somebody send some photos to show that exact area so we can take a look at it. So, yeah, if it was going to be in the original design, I think it'd already be there. So people are just pulling their stuff up because they don't want to walk around to the sidewalk.
Well, the ramp, like that ramp goes like wall.
Oh, that big ramp. Yeah. Yeah, they're okay. Yeah, and part of the reason, I mean, the slope on the ramp, that's there because it has to meet ADA standards, and that's a pretty big slope. So they had to make it a really long path. Even the entrance to 796 into that building, that ramp is really long. We've already asked them in phase 2 not to build that part of the building that way, because we realized for people moving in, that was a lot of extra going back and forth as well.
So it's just like.
Yeah, so what the ramp is built to meet Americans with Disability Act accommodations, all the slopes and all of that, as I understand it, the contractor has to meet, the grade has to be sufficient for that. And if we were to, yeah, that's why it's so long. So if we were to put one down into the parking lot and somebody got on it with a wheelchair, there'd be liability issues. So it probably, I'm guessing we won't be able to do it because it wouldn't meet ADA standards. But it's worth taking a photo of, even just to see if that's something for a future redesign or something. So yeah, we learn a lot when we build new things. All right, I've got 2 more that are here so far. Is it possible to install a commuter stop with a convenience store and/or bike repair center? Intriguing idea, but we currently don't have the funding to create a convenience store. There have been different renditions of this whole housing project that looked at mixed usage buildings, having restaurants and convenience stores, and then other ones upstairs. Thus far, that has not passed in the first two phases. So it would be cool, but right now it's not in the works in this phase. We have no idea what's going to happen to 8, 9, and 1,000 courts in that area and how that will be developed. So that might be something in the future, but I don't think anybody at the university knows yet what's going to happen when those go down in 2026 or where the East Village will go. So the bike storage rooms here and in Spruce do have bike repair stations. Are there pumps in both of them? There's pumps here, but we're waiting for the, is what? They haven't, so we're waiting for the pumps in the Spruce buildings, but there's pumps, there's repair stations in both. That doesn't help Cedar residents. We used to have external ones for Cedar residents, but they came out with the 700 cord. So the East Village still has an exterior bike repair station by the 11. No, because it's secure access to get in. So unless they have a friend who lives here, so make friends with people who live here. All right, can we use the Cedar Court carts in the new building? So I know that people take the red carts out of the stroller storage and out of the Spruce lobby and never bring them back. I'm really befuddled as to where they go because they're really big. At this point, we're looking at, do we put trackers on them or what? Does anybody have one in your room somewhere that you took one of those huge red carts? Yeah. So we're trying to find the carts back. The ones that are in the Cedar East and West courts were purchased by resident council, I think like 8 or 9 years ago through funding from ASUU, and then we kept buying them. They're kind of meant for outdoor more than indoor. And we purchased a lot of carts when we did the move-ins here. I don't foresee that we'll add carts. If whoever submitted this is here or online, send a follow-up and let me know what you're thinking, and we can sure talk about it. So, because those carts are pretty nice in the 8, 9, and 10. They're indestructible, really. They're pretty good. So it was a resident council purchase. Yes. All right, I've got one more, and let me see where we are on time. And then if folks want to stay and talk, we're still going to have about 10 minutes left. Paul, I have a feeling this came from you. Could we use the campus sustainability fund to install solar panels on the new buildings? Where is the building energy currently sourced from? I knew, this is Paul. He's one of the RAs. He knew I had to do this, so he's trying to trip me up here. So no, so as far as the Sustainable Campus Initiative funds, they have $1,000 grants, $5,000, and $10,000. I don't think $10,000 would touch putting solar panels that made a difference on these buildings. These buildings are, I believe, LEED silver by their efficiency standards, which is not the highest level, but the second highest level for energy efficiency. Don't ask me how the power runs, Paul. That's really unfair of you as a PhD in science to ask me that question. It comes out of that big box over there. If you really want to know how the energy, I know it comes, the power comes from the station by the stadium that feeds the West Village. After that, you're going to have to ask maintenance because I'm not very good at that stuff. Did not do well in 5th grade science. All right, any other questions, conversations? Yeah, Skylar. Handicap what? Oh. Yeah. Okay. I do not know of any plan to do that, but the question is, Wendy, for you out there, wherever you are, and for phase 2, as well as in existing structures, is there a way to do handicap open doors on any of the stroller storages and laundry rooms to help people that are carrying kids and strollers and things? Uh-huh. Yeah. Right, where there's, okay. Yeah, I mean, the purpose of those doors is for people in wheelchairs, right? I mean, that's the purpose behind them. I would guess the cost is somewhat prohibitive, which is why we don't have them on every door. But I can certainly, I don't know the answer to that. It's a great question.
A question about the Cedar Apartments in the West Village. With the announcement of the closure of May 31st, does that signify that they're no longer accepting applications to go?
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
as of that announcement, there.
No, let me, I'm going to tell the question. Yeah, let me repeat the question. So the question was for the Cedar 8, 9, and 1,000 units that are scheduled to be emptied on May 31 of 2026. Are we notifying incoming residents? Absolutely. The language on our website has for the past 4 years said we're going to rebuild all of these, but now there is particular language that says these, if you're applying, the 8, 9, and 1,000 courts are going to be closed on this time. If you plan to stay here longer than that, you should apply for an East Village apartment. So yeah, we're accepting applications, but only people are told very clearly, like it's in bold, that these buildings are closing at this time.
There's like a 2-year gap from when that specifically focused their timeline, but residents know that, or.
You know, that's a good question. In the other courts, in Med Plaza, we stopped about 6 months before we closed Med Plaza, just because the plumbing in that building was scaring us. And so we didn't allow new people. We generally, once we work towards closure, unless we have a furnished apartment that we do a short-term rental, or unless, you know, somebody's coming from overseas and somebody says, can you please just house them for 3 months? But we don't try to refill them when we're planning to close the building. But if somebody, you know, if we have 2 years, that's very different than when we're at 6 months. So yeah, good question. But yeah, everybody, if people don't read it, that's on them, but it's definitely out there. And before they accept an offer, they're just like, are you sure? Because this building is going to close. They will be hard key access only for the people. We don't have they didn't put a swipe on that, just like they didn't initially on the stroller storage. So you'll have a key to that room, and then either a padlock or key of some sort on your particular storage unit. Yeah. I think there was a question somewhere. I think I might have missed it when I went through it. Somebody also said a lot of us have ski gear and things like that. With Cottonwood, when you guys moved in, we told you get 3 permits for stuff. So at some point, as these buildings fill up, if people have 20 items, that's not going to be allowable anymore. We're going to have to figure out another way for people to store stuff. The same, it happens in the Cedar units as well. If somebody, usually we used to do 5 permits as a maximum for outdoor toys and things like that. We've always tried to work with people on it because some people don't have anything that they store. But as this building fills up, we're probably going to have to restrict more how many pieces of equipment people are able to store in the storage, at the bike storage and the stroller storage. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Not for, if you rent a storage unit, that's totally for you, whatever you want to do with it. Yeah.
Letting people know they move in that there's things getting.
Yeah, that's a great question. So the question was, in the new buildings that in second phase, are they planning to make a freight elevator or something to make it easier for people to get big furniture up, or maybe can't get your furniture up at all? I don't know the answer to that. As far as I know, it's a design build. So I think the best we could do is say, this is for incoming people before they rent. This is the size of the elevator. And so you'll be limited as to what you can bring up the elevator. That's a great question, because we had a lot of people run into that. It's still easier than going up the stairwell, right? In the 900 court. Oh, thank you. I'm glad somebody's thinking. Okay. Anonymous attendee. Is there any plan to address the parking issues for the 800 and 900 courts other than making residents park in the new lots? There are frequently no parking spots that are available in our designated lots, especially after 9 p.m. And residents have to park in areas that aren't actual spots or are reserved for maintenance. So first of all, there are no designated parking areas at Sunnyside Apartment. There is ample parking available around the complex for every car and every person who lives here. There is no designated parking for the 900 court, the 800 court, the 1,000 court, or any other courts. It's a time of change right now, and people might have to change their routes and where they park, and how they walk home from that. If people have fears and it's late at night, you can call security. They'll even walk you to your apartment if people feel uncomfortable with that. But right now, just a reminder to everybody that your parking pass gives you the permission to park anywhere on this complex, and there's absolutely no guarantee that you get to park next to your building. One thing we have talked about for the 900 court and 800 is if we might want to add a loading and unloading zone like we did for the 1,000 court in some of the visitor stalls. So that way, if people are coming with a couple of kids and groceries, they can park for 20 minutes, unload and go. Commuter service is going to start ticketing all the people that are parking. This person says residents have to park in areas that aren't actual spots. They are going to be ticketed because that is a fire hazard. It's an inconvenience to other people. And it's if they're parking in handicap, it's going to be $150. So we are starting to patrol that area because we've received reports that people are just kind of parking helter-skelter so they can be close to home. So I don't know what other things. Sure.
So this is something that we've talked about in resident council a lot in the last few months. The decision that we've come to with administration is exactly what Valerie just said. I think it bears to reiterate though that the new parking is available to all residents. You don't have to be in the new buildings to park in the new parking. And so for 900 court residents, you can, especially, and I used to park in the one that's closest to the 800 court. I now park in the new parking. For 900 court residents, oftentimes the new parking is actually closer to your apartment than the other one. So again, there's no requirement to park anywhere, but you can park in the new parking. And you know, if you have friends in the 800 court, maybe you want to do them a favor and park in the new parking. But we've talked about this, and we can't really require anyone to park anywhere. So it kind of makes things a little difficult in that sense.
And the other thing I would just encourage people, if you're not using your car very often, park it further away, help your neighbors out. You know, that's the other thing. As a community, just park your car far away because you only use it once a week. And that way you're helping to resolve the problem within the community. There is plenty of place to park at Sunnyside Apartments with our current occupancy at this point. So, all right, what is the lease term for summer semesters? I am guessing this is from Spruce, and I'm going to not give you a direct answer because we're still working on that. Some of you may or may not know, in the single graduate housing, they're on 9 or 12-month contracts. And we're still determining, like by February or March, we'll be asking people if they intend to stay or not. The family housing is all still on a 30-day month-to-month contract. That hasn't changed. So I'm not sure if this person is asking from Spruce or from Cottonwood or from Cedar, but Cottonwood and Cedar are month-to-month. And the single grads will be getting information out shortly after the new year about summer semester. So. Whew, these are a tough crowd. All right, that's all that I have online. We got a couple minutes. If anybody has other things that you're wondering about or concerns that. And I guess what I meant to lead with too is that one of the things residents often don't realize, and since you're here, I'm glad you realize it, that we're always available to talk to residents. You don't have to wait for a forum to ask a question. You can ask your resident council anytime, but the office, we got nothing to hide. I love meeting with residents and love talking with people about concerns that they have. And sometimes once people understand the context of how did we get here, it goes, oh, okay. So I know that's a concern, but now that makes a little more sense. We try our best. I get up every day hoping that I can make a student have a great day. And I hope that you guys get up believing that. But I mean, a lot of us have been here for a long time at student apartment or at old name, Sunnyside Apartments. Our director is new, but she's deeply committed also to student success and doing what she can to answer questions, to take away any suspicion. We don't have any ulterior motives. We're just trying to do the best that we can in the situation that we're in today's market with the university and the decisions that they're making about housing and going forward. So.
And I also just second that, Wendy and the rest of the administration, Valerie and everyone, all those in administration are super helpful. We've brought a lot of concerns to them from the residents, and all of them have really been resolved. So I think don't be afraid to voice your concerns. We're always willing to help and look into things, but like just as a anecdotal story, the ADA parking with the electric charging was a serious concern because there was no other charging anywhere else and nobody was actually using the charger. And there are requirements with ADA parking that they had to keep, but within a week, I think honestly it was within a week after our discussion, they had gotten rid of one of the ADA removed one of the ADA parkings to another place and opened a spot for the temporary electric charging until these other ones were fixed. So I just wanted to second that. Just say if you guys ever have any issues, don't be afraid. All of our emails are online and we're always willing to help. So thanks everyone for coming.
All right. Thanks everybody online. Appreciate you being here.
Feel free to grab a snack on your way out, but that's what's coming.